honestly, France are a massive, massive disappointment for me. And I can't believe I'm saying this about a semifinalist, but for me, they're disappointing. Guys, chat, you know what? I want to say this, right? Let me know if you guys think I'm being too harsh or I'm being nostalgic, because sometimes people accuse me of that. And to be fair, I'm open to anybody's opinion. But this is really my personal opinion about this Euro. Is it just me, chat, or does this Euro kind of feel like it's missing the elite players playing at an elite level? Like, the best players for me at this tournament have actually been the youngsters. I'm talking like Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal, Musiala throughout like this tournament for the most part has been really good. Arda Güler has really shined for Turkey. Gakpo, like the younger players have been really, really good. I in fact, that's something I've really loved about this tournament, how good the young guys have been. But then when I look at the players that when you entered this tournament, you kind of had high hopes for, and you were saying, oh, this guy could win player of the tournament, or this guy could be the top scorer of the tournament. I really don't think any of them have really performed to that level. Obviously, the main one is Mbappe, and people will say Mbappe is playing with a mask. It's disturbing him. Look, I've never played with a mask in my life, so I don't know how much this is really hindering Kylian Mbappe. But Mbappe has been massively, massively underwhelming this tournament. I don't even want to say he's been like horrible, but he's for me been very underwhelming. If this is the best player in the world at our disposal, and he very well might be, I'm not trying to say here Mbappe isn't, but it might get to a point, guys, and this is coming from a massive Mbappe fan, where maybe we have to kind of just look at ourselves in the mirror and say, is Kylian Mbappe the best player in the world because he's that great? Or is it the talent pool around him that he's just the best of the rest? And look, being the best of the rest is not a problem. Mbappe is still a top player, right? One of the best goal scorers we've seen. His international level, especially at World Cups, is sensei. I'm not trying to downplay Mbappe here, but it's not often that I look at a player who I consider the best in the world and like I get underwhelmed as often as I am with Kylian Mbappe. And I'm not trying to be reactionary here, right? I know what he did at the World Cup, but if I really look at the last like 2-3 years for Mbappe, like honestly, like a full season really hasn't moved me since that year where he almost knocked out Real Madrid on his own. Since then, like, look, the numbers are great. The moments are great. But I don't know, man. Maybe it's hangover from Ronaldo Messi. And I'm not trying to be reactionary here. And I'm not trying to diss Mbappe. But I've been very underwhelmed this tournament. Extremely underwhelmed. And I was very underwhelmed in the Champions League as well, too. But that's just Mbappe, right? He's the biggest name. He's, for me, who I consider the best player in the world. So when I think of elite players underwhelming and underachieving, I think of Mbappe first. But even other players, right? Bruno Fernandes was somebody that I came into this tournament saying, yo, I think Bruno could put together a player of the tournament caliber campaign if he's on it. I've seen what he's done for Portugal in the past. His record for United kind of coming towards the end of the season was really good. Bruno, for me, again, I wouldn't say horrible tournament, but just underwhelming. Like, I hear all the time, Bruno, this is the best creative midfielder on the planet, an output machine. Oh, anyone who doesn't rate Bruno is like, doesn't understand football. And again, this isn't me saying Bruno is crap. He was okay. Honestly, I thought so. Who else do we got? Harry Kane. This is supposed to be the best striker in the world, or one of them alongside Erling Haaland. For me, has been mid this tournament. Hasn't convinced me whatsoever. I'm not doubting Harry Kane's credentials. I'm not saying he's not a great goal. He's one of the best strikers in the world, maybe the best. But at this tournament, he's been mid. That's my opinion. I'm even thinking other players. England in general, right? They have all these big names. Most of them have underwhelmed, but a lot of them are young too. So like, I'm trying to be consistent here. And Kevin De Bruyne had 2 really good games, I thought. The other 2 games for me was meh, honestly. That the third group stage game against, who was it, Ukraine, and then the game against France, Kevin De Bruyne didn't really move me. And sure, there were times, especially against France, where he was playing deeper, and I actually think that hurts his game. De Bruyne didn't really move me. Lukaku didn't really move me at this tournament. It just in general, honestly. Most of the so-called proclaimed big-time players, I really feel have been a letdown at this tournament. In fact, someone just pointed out a good thing. The player that I actually loved this tournament so far, that I consider a top player, and for me that has lived up to the building, is Rodri. Rodri, for me, at this tournament, has carried on his form from City into the Euro. For me, he's been one of the best players at this tournament. So Rodri, he is, for me, someone I consider an elite level player playing at an elite standard at this Euros. But the honest reality is, there aren't too many others, in my opinion. Let me know, chat, if you think I'm being harsh. Let me know if I'm forgetting anybody. But I can't lie. From what I'm seeing, not many of these guys are moving me. Toni Kroos is another one, right? Look, we all know the guy who's calling him the system, and it's being painted as this last dance. I didn't think Kroos was that great this tournament, in my opinion. I actually think a lot of it has kind of been painted as this story, this fairy tale of Kroos' last dance. And like he's bowing out on the top. I didn't think Kroos was that great this tournament. He was all right, honestly. I'm not saying any of these guys are horrible or were horrible, but I consider them elite players. And in my opinion, most of them have not performed at an elite standard. That's the way I see it. And you know what it is, right? I don't think I am being nostalgic, because there's a tournament that I really feel similar about, right? The 2010 World Cup, I always said 2010 World Cup was similar in a way that we went into this tournament with high hopes for a few players. Messi, Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Didier Drogba, Diego Milito. Who else were like the big players kind of heading into this tournament? I'm trying to think for a second. Those were like the big five because they had amazing tournaments or they had amazing seasons the year before. Milito less so because I don't think he was ever going to start for Argentina. But I'm just trying to think players in 09-10 who had great seasons, but then went into the World Cup and honestly were just meh. Torres was another one. Messi and Ronaldo stunk up the gap. No, I don't want to say stunk up the gap, but again, they were the two best players in the world. They were underwhelming at that tournament. Wayne Rooney came off an amazing season for United, and sure, he came into the tournament a little injured, completely underwhelmed at that tournament. Drogba was, again, slightly injured as well, too. Ivory Coast were supposed to be a dark horse at the tournament, couldn't even make it out of the group. So 2010, to be honest with you, was a similar tournament. I'm not trying to say every player flopped, right? Schneider was really good. Xavi and Iniesta were really good. But for the most part, a lot of the big-name superstars at the 2010 World Cup also, for me, didn't really execute at the elite level that we kind of knew they would. So for me saying that, for me, Euro 2024 hasn't lived up to the elite players playing at the elite level, it's not me being like nostalgic or whatever, because I'm very aware that in the past, big players have flopped at big tournaments. I'm very aware of that, just like I brought up 2010. But this tournament, I've often felt like, damn, it seems like there's something missing. We're talking about France versus Portugal, right? Two of the big favorites for this tournament, and it's almost a snooze fest. Why is that the case? Because we're watching teams that we overhype because they have brilliant players. But the brilliant players aren't playing at brilliant levels. And that's why, for me, both these teams for me are underwhelming at the moment. The big players that we put so much stock into and we gassed them up so much, for me at this tournament have fell flat. Bernardo Silva is another one. To be honest, Bernardo for Portugal is never the same guy that he is for City. But another big name that for me at this tournament hasn't been that great. Raf says, I just think we shouldn't have high hopes when it comes to quality international tournaments. Everything is worse than club football. The coaching, overall performances, and environment. Raf, I agree with almost everything you said, but for me, I can't agree with the individual performances from players. That I can never agree with international football. I agree. The style of play is never as good as it is at club football. The tactical side of the game is never as good as it is at club football. But I'm sorry, no one will ever be able to convince me that individual players and the best players in the world shouldn't be able to rise at international level just because the club dynamics aren't replicated at international level. If anything, there's more space because of how less tactical it is, how less coached under a microscope it is. There's more space and more time and more individual moments for players to really do their own thing. And we've seen it in the past. That's why, for me, all the best players in the world, if you really look at them, or the best players of all time, their legacies are based off international tournaments. Because that's really where they're almost given the keys to a country and said, take us to the promised land. Think of almost every single all-time great player. They made their name almost entirely from an international tournament. So in that sense, I never really take stock when people say like, oh, you can't expect much from these players. International football is worse than club football. As a product, maybe, but in terms of like environments for individuals to succeed, you are given more of a chance to be an individual and express yourself and create moments on your own at international football, in my opinion, than you are at club level.